Daniel Levy is the president of the U.S. Middle East Project, joining us live from London now for a bit more analysis on the latest news, specifically after this military operation now that is underway in Jenin. And Daniel, we have seen some footage of Palestinians being rounded up. We've heard news that 10 Palestinians have been killed. And this is just days away of what should be phase 2 of the ceasefire and hostage deal. Right, and we're waiting for more hostages to be released. There's big concern that what we're seeing in the West Bank could derail this agreement. What is your view?
Well, there's a few things going on here, Lenny, and we have seen, it's been very transparent that Prime Minister Netanyahu didn't want to get to this moment. It upends his coalition stability. What his coalition partners have offered him is give us the ravages of war and we will give you the tranquility of a coalition that is quiescent to you. So I think Netanyahu, first of all, in the West Bank, is letting them have their fun and hoping that that will placate them, and at the same time, hoping that this will be part of the provocation that unravels a deal that he is uncomfortable and unhappy with. It's unpredictable because of the way the hostage release plays out inside Israeli society, but not just Jenin. And in Jenin, we see again this distinction between combatant and civilian is being played very loosely. It's not respected. We see the hospital gone after. We see the amount of checkpoints now throughout the West Bank. We see those very provocative rearrests. So he's making sure that Israel remains on a war footing. The other thing we can't forget, decontextualize, is this is nothing new in the West Bank. The intensity has increased, but Israel's dispossession of Palestinians, stealing of land, making it as uninhabitable as possible is a long-standing thing.
Yeah, I mean, President Trump lifting the sanctions on Israeli settlers, and then we saw the Israeli settler violence playing out as well, which of course became very violent. We saw multiple arrests. 2 Israeli settlers were also shot. What is your overall view of the tension that we're seeing and the potential for this to escalate even further?
The potential is very significant. The Trump administration, I think, saw a parting of interests in a very specific sense with Netanyahu on guard. This war is a distraction. They want to see the hostages out. They don't want America dragged more into this. However, one should distinguish between that and between a Trump Republican ecosystem, which is in any way aligned with genuine peace, ending occupation, international law, rights for Palestinians, all those kinds of things. In that respect, I think Netanyahu feels is in a convenient position. And with the removal of those sanctions, they have created a more permissive environment in the West Bank. We're seeing that play out. But we should also acknowledge that when the Biden administration placed those sanctions, they were really going after the wrong thing. The address is the state of Israel. That gives the subsidies, defends, allows the stealing of this land. So if you want to be serious about grappling with these illegalities, you address the state, not a few individuals.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point. And on that note, I want you to take a listen to the confirmation hearing of Trump's pick for the U.S. ambassador to the UN. Take a listen to this.
I'm rarely surprised by answers in my office, but I did ask you whether you subscribe to the views of Finance Minister Smotrich.
Who? I'm sorry,
Smotrich. This is the Israeli Finance Minister Smotrich and the former National Security Minister Ben-Gvir, who believe that Israel has a biblical right to the entire West Bank. And in that conversation, you told me that, yes, you shared that view. Is that your view today?
Yes.
Right, so yes, biblical rights, right, to what is sovereign land at the moment. How are you assessing her stance? And frankly, we've got to remind our audience that the UN has veto power at the UN Security Council. So what do you think is going to happen based on what her views are?
First, I don't know if other people reacted this way, but I never cease to be a little bit surprised at how this thing that they have such a commitment to, this greater Israel, whatever Israel wants, they have so little knowledge of. Like who? Who's this person you're talking about? Are you really not paying attention that much? Anyway, what we have here is a clarity that the Office holders in a Trump administration will often have these extreme positions that very much align with those who seek to permanently remove the Palestinians, create Greater Israel. And of course, you can't go anywhere with that. In practical terms, Eleni, what we saw with Biden was sometimes his ambassador at the UN, Thomas, spoke the nice language, but the vetoes, the actions, what they actually did, the defunding of the UN agency, UNRWA, crucial for humanitarian assistance, all of that was the policy that will be continued. I think it's legitimate to ask what will be the impact in an already very frayed, fragile international architecture and the position of the US within it. How much credibility can someone like that have at the UN, someone like Stefanik? And are they going to accelerate what is anyway a shift towards people questioning, can the UN continue as it is? And what role does the US have? And this is in the context of a new geopolitical reality. We have BRICS, we don't have American unipolarity, and they are undermining America in that.
Yeah, look, President Trump is known to be unpredictable. Well, one thing, if we look back at his first term, he was behind the Abraham Accords, right, which was very significant, moved the U.S. Embassy to Jerusalem. So what are you expecting in the next 4 years? You've been part of peace negotiations, Palestinian and Israeli peace negotiations. So what do you expect could happen? Because it's the U.S. that wields the power in terms of its being Israel's biggest ally and, importantly, supply of weapons.
Yeah, so it's important to remind ourselves that even if Trump distanced himself in comments the other day saying, well, it's not our war, he will soon learn just how much this is America's war. This could not go on for a day without those weapons, without the aid and the assistance, without the diplomatic and legal cover the US runs for Israel at the UN, the attacks it launches against the International Criminal Court and the International Court of Justice. This is America's war as well. I think we should expect there is a trend for the Trump position on the Palestinians to remain largely what it was, which is antithetical to peace. We had those Abraham Accords, but now the jury is in. We see that the worst conflicts, the worst violence has happened since those accords. I'm not blaming the accords, but clearly they are not a building block for peace. However, and this may matter, there is part of that Trump, and we're hearing some of those statements, that do not see a benefit in America being drawn into fighting other people's wars in a place like the Middle East. All the other things that they're trying to achieve as an administration may be undermined by this. So I think when it comes to broader military action, for instance, Iran, the jury may well be out. Unfortunately, the degree of dehumanization of Palestinians and the degree of willful ignorance when it comes to this whole issue in the American political ferment, and that crosses over deep into the Democrat Party, as we saw with the really complicit and terrible policies of the Biden administration, make it unlikely that on the Palestine-Israel situation, we are going to get progress or anything constructive. I would argue that that sounds like it's great for Israel. It's actually going to be bad news for Israel. Israel has failed to defeat Hamas. Israel is really exposing a lot of vulnerabilities. And Israelis also, of course, Palestinians will suffer dramatically, but Israelis also are not going to know security unless they get to grips with the root causes, with the dispossession and denial of Palestinian freedoms. And I don't think America will be there for that.
All right, Daniel, thank you so much for your insights. Good to have you on the show. Daniel Levy for us. And so